What is going on, guys? Welcome back into Content Meta. We finally arrived at the penultimate episode of the season. And even though on the surface, this chapter might not seem as revolutionary or groundbreaking as the prior two episodes, the show continues to build on Star Wars lore, not to mention give us some thought-provoking dialogue in the process. And if you haven't already done so, hit that subscribe button and leave a like at the end of this video to be entered into a drawing to win that Baby Yoda merch. And lastly, careful for spoilers if you haven't already watched the episode. So without any further ado, let's talk some Star Wars. As we arrive at the Karthon Chop Fields, we find Mayfield metalwork in the middle of a scrapyard as part of a sentence for the death of a prison guard in Chapter 6. Within a few moments though, he is reassigned by Cara Dune, and after mistaking Boba Fett for Mando, he does abruptly come face to helmet with the man who put him there in the first place. After a couple rounds of questioning, we find out that because of Mayfield's imperial background, he just became the right man for the job. Mando asks Mayfield about Moff Gideon, and though reluctantly, he tells the team that he needs access to an eternal imperial terminal and that there's one on Morak. Boba Fett punches in the coordinates and they're on their way. Now, the one thing that struck me about Mayfield's reaction to the mission was how he seemed genuinely surprised to hear that Grogu was taken and that he was willing to help. In Mando's first encounter with Migs, Mayfield used Grogu as a means to test Mando, whether or not it was due to his time spent in the chop fields or if his tough exterior was just a ruse in the beginning. The type of insight that we end up getting from Mayfield was a much welcome addition and a pleasant surprise to the franchise as a whole. After having landed the slave one on Morak, which is just mind-boggling that it's become commonplace as of late just to say that, they devised a plan to get to the terminal. Once they hijack one of the Juggernaut transports, similar to those seen on Kashyyyk in Revenge of the Sith, there's a bit of foreshadowing that takes place as well, just after Mayfield and Mando takes control of one of the transports.
Feels better when it's off.
Now, if you had together this scene with the previous scene, where he professed that he would not take his helmet off, I already begin to get those vibes that it would happen. Now we have an action sequence that takes place due to some pirates attempting to detonate Mando's commandeered cargo of Rhydonium. It was serviceable and well executed, but one of the main highlights of the series comes when Mayfield and Mando are passing through a town. Mayfield begins to point out how the impact of both the Empire and the New Republic are virtually the same, that people will be ruled over regardless. He continues to tell Mando that there must have been some people on Mandalore that died from the war when they actually wasn't their war to begin with. Mayfield believes that people are all the same, and if you can sleep good at night, then you're doing better than most. Now, we've seen this type of message signaling before in The Last Jedi, which was far more heavy-handed than here. But here it was presented in a discussion type manner, which I think is the sole reason why it's far more intriguing when done this way. Shortly after the two arrive at the refinery, they are saluted as heroes for being one of the first crews to make it past the pirates. Also, something else worth noting is how this chapter introduces a compare and contrast scenario, with the audience being compelled to root for the Empire, if only briefly. This drives home the fact of Mayfield saying we're all the same, which is the equivalent of yin and yang, or the interplay of the light and the dark in Star Wars. Anyway, immediately after they depart the Juggernaut, they head for the officers' mess hall to find the terminal. But as soon as they near the doorway, Mayfield recognizes one of his old officers, Valen Hess, and fears that the old officer might recognize him. Mayfield refuses to do it. Mando tells him that if he can't, he'll lose the kid forever. Mayfield is still adamant, but he does tell Mando that in order for someone to access the terminal, it has to scan your face. And in one of the most pivotal moments of the show, Mando grabs the data stick, attempts to first scan with the helmet on, but then removes it in order to get the coordinates to Moff Gideon. And when I saw it, I said to myself, we've reached a point of no return for Mando's arc as a character, and how much he has really grown to care for Grogu. And in a similar act of self-sacrifice, once Mando retrieves the coordinates, he is approached by Valen Hess, who wants to know his designation or TK number, but Mayfield steps in to vouch for Mando, so to speak. They're invited to the table to chat and have a toast for being the only transport to make it in that day, and within a few minutes, Mayfield mentions Operation Cinder. Now, to the casual observer, this is just a random name drop, but to Star Wars fandom, this reference just canonized the Star Wars Battlefront 2 game, in which the deceased Palpatine, by way of a preordained contingency plan, ordered a slew of planets to be essentially destroyed by satellites and disrupting the planet's climate. Mayfield knew those involved to perish, so to him, it was personal. Mayfield even mentions the families, which really nails home his point. And since he was sitting right across the table from an officer who took pride in the event, in an old school Han Solo moment, Mayfield shoots first. The shootout leads them to the roof where they rendezvous with Fett, and just before leaving, Mayfield, who was in the past an imperial sharpshooter, takes out the entire refinery with one shot to the cargo of Rhydonium. And in one of the most fan-serviced moments of the episode, in order to elude the TIE fighters in hot pursuit, Boba Fett releases one of his shockwave bombs as seen in the Attack of the Clones, obliterating the TIE fighters. Once they all reach a safe distance, Officer Cara Dune is impressed with Mayfield's actions, stating that prisoner 34667 has died in a refinery explosion on Morag. And in the last scene of the chapter, Mando repeats the same message left for him by Moff Gideon in Season 1. But this time, the weight of the words striking a chord with the audience, knowing what we just witnessed and how far Mando is willing to go to return Grogu by his side. Well, that's all I got for this chapter. Stay tuned in the content meta for more reviews like this. I'm interested to see if we'll see Mayfield or Bill Burr again, and can't wait to see what happens in the finale. Will we finally get to see the Jedi who responded to Grogu's Force call? I'm sure it's going to shake things up in Star Wars fandom. And make sure you leave a like if you like this video, and if you stuck around this far into the video, we certainly appreciate you. And until then, see you then.